What are your thoughts on this passage from Gary Taubes, author of The Case for Keto? No meaningful experimental evidence, no clinical trials exist to support the contention that we would live longer, healthier lives by eating mostly plants rather than animal-sourced foods.
Well, it's just a lie. I mean, it's just an absolute lie. If there's no way that any individual who goes to PubMed and does a search of all of the scientific literature we have could say this. I know there's a mountain of meaningful experimental evidence that supports the contention that we would live longer, healthier lives eating mostly plants. And it's true, a lot of the evidence does come from observational studies, but there are more and more clinical trials that have confirmed the findings of observational studies. That's what they're meant to do. And we have to accept clinical trials are expensive. They're not easy to do long-term. They're usually short-term. And but we still have a number of meaningful trials. And most of them, I think, are longer in duration than the keto trials. The evidence is, and again, I said this before, but I'll say it again, the evidence is so strong that the major health authorities from, whatever you look at, the World Health Organization, our national and international organizations for diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, they all recommend a predominantly plant-based diet for a reason. It's because the evidence supports a plant-based diet as being the most protective against these diseases, and in fact, the most effective at treating these diseases as well.
What are your thoughts on this passage from Gary Taubes, author of The Case for Keto? When I started reporting on this subject as a journalist 20 years ago, virtually no meaningful research had been published to test the claims of the diet book doctors, most famously Robert Atkins, who advocated this way of eating. When I started reporting, since then, carbohydrate-restricted diets, keto or otherwise, may have become the most tested diets in history. The website clinicaltrials.gov reports more than 100 clinical trials of ketogenic diets in progress and nearly 90 completed. The findings are consistent. Ketogenic eating is safe and effective at controlling both weight and blood sugar. Pick a disease from Alzheimer's and anxiety disorders to traumatic brain injury and tumors, and researchers somewhere are probably testing whether eating a ketogenic diet improves its prognosis. In 2019, the American Diabetes Association concluded that low carbohydrate and very low carbohydrate diets, that is, keto, were the only dietary therapies that consistently resulted in beneficial outcomes for adults with diabetes or prediabetes. In 2017, more than 100 Canadian physicians co-signed a letter to the Huffington Post declaring that they personally follow keto-like regimens and now counsel their patients to do so too. What we see in our clinics, these physicians wrote, is that blood sugar values go down, blood pressure drops, chronic pain decreases or disappears, lipid profiles improve, inflammatory markers improve, energy increases, weight decreases, sleep is improved, IBS or irritable bowel syndrome symptoms are lessened, etc. Medication is adjusted downward or even eliminated, which reduces the side effects for patients and the cost to society. The results we achieve with our patients are impressive and durable. Again, what are your thoughts on that passage from Gary Taubes?
I mean, I just can't believe the extent of the claims he makes. I mean, we see very similar claims, of course, in the plant-based community and all of the physicians who are lifestyle medicine physicians and are promoting, healthy plant-based diets for their patients. To me, the difference is the people promoting plant-based diets will actually have patients still alive 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, whereas the people promoting keto diets will start losing their patients. I just, when I think about some of the claims, ADA, the American Diabetes Association, did put out a consensus report on nutrition therapy for adults with diabetes or prediabetes in 2019. And the purpose of the report was really to provide evidence-based guidelines about nutrition therapy. And yes, they do suggest that low carbohydrate diets are effective for meeting glycemic targets. They do not suggest that they're the only diet therapies that are beneficial. And in fact, if you read the document, Gary Taubes claims that they say they're the only diets. They very clearly state that a variety of eating patterns can work and are acceptable for the management of diabetes. And they emphasize, they say three things. They say these patterns should emphasize non-starchy vegetables. They should minimize added sugars and refined grains. And people should be choosing whole foods over highly processed foods. They suggest a Mediterranean style diet, which is a plant predominant diet, or low fat diets, which they describe as vegetarian or vegan or plant-based, or a low carb diet. So they recommend really three types of diets. They also urge that people with diabetes get at least 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. Good luck doing that on a keto diet. They suggest intact grains, non-starchy vegetables, avocados, fruits, berries, beans, peas, and lentils as the best sources of these of this fiber. Most of these are excluded on keto diets. So you're not going to get fiber from meat or fat. So it's just I don't know. And it's also interesting to note, he mentioned these 100 physicians from Canada. Well, Diabetes Canada clinical practice guidelines states that, the style of eating that works best for diabetes may be described as, and this is directly from their official clinical practice guidelines, a Mediterranean style diet, a vegan or vegetarian diet, a DASH diet, a Nordic style diet, which is largely plant-based, and dietary patterns that emphasize legumes, vegetables, fruits, and nuts. That's what they say. So he has definitely a way of cherry picking things that he wants to hear. I just be very skeptical, be very, very skeptical of whatever Gary Taubes says.